Welcome back. In this next step, what we're going to do is we're going to finish out working on that anime table page, and we're going to add some style to it, and we're going to do a little bit of refactor in our project directory. So the first thing that we're going to do is I added a link with some resources that we're going to be using throughout the application, and it's going to be in this folder called GIFs. So I want you to download that, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into our project directory, and we're going to paste this within our My App directory under source, and we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call it res. You can just paste that down in there. And then we'll go in here under res, and then we're going to just paste that in there like so. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is let's see where we left off last time. So cd into your project directory. Make sure you run that API file. API.js, that's going to start our Express server and just have it listening for any requests we make from our app. Open up another terminal and go to the React tutorial folder one more time. Go into My App this time where our actual React application lives, and we're going to do npm start right at the root of that. And I'm going to open up one more terminal because I'm going to also open up Visual Studio Code. I'm just going to do code dot. If you remember last time, we left off on this table, and you know it's pretty plain. There's nothing really here. It's just a big fat table. So in this video, we're going to add some style to it and make it look more so closer to what we have on the actual demo video that shows what the entire application looks like. Okay, so let's start with our table file under components, and as you can see right here under res, and we now have another folder called GIFs, and it has all of those little spray animations that we're going to be using throughout the application. So if you remember, we have this code to take the columns out of the first row of data and then create a columns array that we're going to feed into the React table library so that it knows what the columns are for the table. And instead of doing it like this is actually a really ugly way to do it. We're going to do it a little different. So the first thing that we're going to do is just delete all of that, and we're going to assign a variable called columns, and we're going to use a method called object.keys. What this does is it takes an object and it iterates through all of its keys. So once we get, it's going to get an object and take all of the keys through that and give us something that we can actually iterate over. So then we're going to use the map function to iterate over that array of keys. And we're going to take the key and we're going to return an object to that columns array that we have set up right there into the format that we had previously that React table is going to be able to understand. Wow, I cannot talk. So we're just going to assign that to the columns array right there. And then in the next step, we're going to add a clause in case we don't get those props in time, in case our code is, a little too fast, working a little too hard, and it has no idea what this data is, and it's unable to iterate through it. So we're going to return null if that happens. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to comment this out just so you guys have an understanding of what is going on. Let's close that terminal and go back right here. So exactly what I said, it says it cannot convert undefined or null to object. And what it is referring to is this data 0. It's an undefined variable. Basically, we're sending in this empty array, and the table is getting the empty array, and it's like, oh, well, I don't know what data 0 is of an empty array. There's no first element there, so that's why it's throwing the exception. Now, if we put this, we uncomment this, and we save, and we go back to Google Chrome, and let's refresh, so you can see that it takes a little bit of time, right? It's not quite going as fast as it could. So we just need to program our component in a way that accounts for that specific edge case. And all React components kind of do this in their own way, where they just account for the code being too fast. So now that we have that covered, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do some project restructuring here. So inside of our components, let's create a new folder called anime table. And this is going to house the table, so let's move the table in there. And then we're also going to create a new file called tablecontainer.js. And what we're going to do with this is it's basically going to take all of the logic from our app So let's go in, do this. We'll copy and paste everything from our app.js, paste it in here, and let's rename this table container. And then, okay, so it's already in there, so we can edit that path because it's going to be within the same path right here. So let's take this. As you can see, they're in the same folder right here. So we actually don't need to have that relative path spelled out exactly like that. We can just do /table. And then right here, what we're going to do is we're going to import the table container. Now this is a good idea because as our app gets larger and larger, we want to assign certain components to take account of all this data fetching logic done right here and just pass it down to the child components within our app. So let's delete all of that, and we're just going to redefine render and do return table container. And that's all our app is going to need to be doing right here. So we'll save that. Let's go here. Let's save that. And if I am not mistaken, that should be good enough to get where we need to go. Okay, perfect. So we can see that it's still working. We just restructured it a little bit. Now, the next step that we're going to do is we're going to add some HTML to this table container so that we can get it into that nicely fit style that we wanted to, that we showed in that demo. So let's take some of this. And I will explain all of this at the end. For now, we're just going to write some code and assign some class names to it so we can edit it later with the style sheet that we create together. So let's create a div. Inside of that div, it's going to be centered row. Going to add some styling using the style prop that is provided to all of the HTML tags within the React library, or within the React library. We're going to have a paragraph for class name, and that class name is going to be table title. And then inside of that, we're just going to have some text that says animate information. Now inside of the outer div, we're going to do another div. This is going to be a different row, so centered row. Then we're going to do an image, and the image is going to be an image that we import from that GIFs folder that you downloaded from the link in the description below. And it's going to be a Kingdom Hearts gift, actually. So if anyone is a fan of Kingdom Hearts, then you should definitely like that GIF. It's pretty cool. It's got Sora and Riku in it. They are so tight. they're very cool. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do import the Kingdom Hearts. And this is just going to be an image, right? So we're just going to give it the specified path. So it's in res. It's under the GIFs folder, and it's actually called kingdomhearts.gif. So let's do that. Let's save this. See what we get. And there we go. That's our GIF that we use. So we have Mickey, Sora, and then, oh, Roxas, excuse me. It wasn't, oh no, Riku's right there too. All right, very cool. But as you can see, it's still really ugly. You know, this is all aligned to the left. The table is right here taking up the entire width of the page. And we don't really want any of that. So let's go back. And now that we have some style set, or excuse me, we're going to do one more thing actually. We are going to create this last component, and it's going to be called the reset button component. So under animate table, create a new file called reset button. And let's code this together. So what this component is going to be in charge of down the line is just resetting our database whenever we want to start fresh and clean. It's going to run some scripts and reset our stores and do a bunch of other logic, all within one click of the button. So we're going to create a functional component. It's going to be called reset button, and it's going to accept one prop called onClick, and that's just going to be the function handler that we pass it to. So let's return something really simple. It's going to be an image, or an icon, sorry, that's an icon tag, and it's going to have a class name of reset button so that we can assign some style to it. On click, it's going to call the onClick prop, and then the title is going to be reset database. So whenever you hover over this, there's going to be some text that displays, and what that is, it's going to say reset button, or reset database, excuse me. Alright, and then within that icon, we want to have some text that says reset database. Alright, perfect. And then at the very end we need to export our reset button, because you actually can't do that. Sorry, I called that react button. You actually cannot do that within one line like you can with class. So if you look right here, we had to assign the variable right here. And if you look in table container, we were able to do export default class and then do this blah 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 blah. But right here we can't because it's assigned to a variable, so we need to do export default reset button. That's exactly what we have right there. Okay, so since this video is trailing on a little bit, we're going to stop it here and then continue the refactor in the next video.